Hey, Brett Starr.
How you doing?
Doing good.
See what I did
How about
there?
you?
I'm doing great.
Yeah, I saw what you did.
Yeah,
I heard what you did.
I pulled the punch.
Mhm.
I'm trying to do the unexpected thing. Did it work?
I was completely gobsmacked by that. So thank you.
Well, it's good to see your beautiful face.
Thank you. It's good to be seen.
Let's
It's good to see you and the lava lamp and the little, is that a bonsai tree there?
That is, and I've got an interesting story about the bonsai tree. First of all,
I
moved the lava
didn't even mean to tee you up like that, but there you go.
I moved the lava lamp the way you told me. Does it look better now? Or I need to keep
Yeah, I like that a lot. It's symmetry.
Thanks, man. And do you know how I water that bonsai?
You don't?
No, I put 5 ice cubes on it every Monday.
Really?
Yeah, that was written into the instructions. It was like put 5.
Do you provide the scotch with it as well?
You know me so well.
But boom.
All right, well, let's get straight to it. Canvas. Would a rose...
Which canvas are you talking about?
Exactly. Does a rose by any other name smell as sweet? I don't think it does, actually. I don't think
Nope.
it does. I think if a
Nope.
rose were called like a death orchid, for instance, I don't think that it would... I think the scent of a rose would create a deep sense of alarm, and you would run screaming from it, so I don't think that a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. But Canvas, the diversity recruiting platform, is in a lot of trouble. And let's talk a little bit about why they're in trouble and whether they should be or not. And some of the things that are not really being talked about at all around this Canvas dispute, like who is the agency?
Well, it might not have been an agency. You know, a lot of renames, rebrands happen internally.
Yeah.
You know, because I think that there's a lot of people think, how hard can it be to come up with a name? Boom, there's a name.
Sunny? Well, okay, so let's tell the whole story. Let's lay this out. So there's this diversity recruiting platform called Canvas.
And it used to be called Jumpstart.
Jumpstart. You stole my pun. I was going to say, let's jumpstart this conversation. So they started as Jumpstart. How long were they Jumpstart?
They were founded in 2017, and in July of 2021, they rebranded themselves to Canvas Tech and I'm sure they bought the canvas.com.
No, they
domain.
leased it.
They leased it. Okay.
Yeah, so this is one of those things that I don't think people fully understand what's going on, like in several of the interesting dimensions of this. But there's someone who owns this domain. They own it. It's kind of like, you remember when, I don't know if you remember the story, but when Ultimate Software, we tried to convince them forever to buy ultimate.com, and it was owned by like some person in Florida or something, just some dude. It was also like Jazz HR, and we tried to get them to buy jazz.com, and jazz.com is owned by some dude. You know, it's not like a domain, you know, like aggregate or anything. It's just some person in you know, like Queens or something that owns jazz.com. And, you know, you talk to them and, you know, have conversations, and they're like, yeah, I'd sell it for, you know, like $2 or $3 million. And they're like, okay, see ya later. And so the person who owns canvas.com actually approached Instructure. And who is Instructure?
Instructure is a learning management system that is owned by Thoma Bravo Private Equity.
Yeah. So if you went to, you know, college in the last like 10 years, you probably used either Blackboard or Canvas.
Right.
My kids actually use Canvas in their school. I mean, my daughter's 10, and she's using Canvas in her school right now. And so Canvas is probably one of the most broadly used, you know, like what we used to call distance learning or, you know, remote learning, you know, kind of technologies. And that's one brand under Instructure. And Instructure's been around for a long time. They're in Salt Lake City, right?
Yep.
We've been in their offices probably 7 times over the last 15 years.
Yep.
Great company, great organization, really strong presence in the market. But the person who owned Canvas approached Instructure on at least 2 different occasions. And on both occasions, Instructure did not deem that owning the canvas.com URL was important enough to shell out cash.
Right.
And so I think what happened is when Jumpstart rebranded as Canvas Tech, I don't think that they could pay the. I don't think that
I got it.
Yeah, and so they leased it. They leased it from the guy, and so probably it's like a 2-year term or 3-year term, and then they come back and decide whether they want to lease it again or not. Sounds kind of fishy to me.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, maybe we're going to get in trouble with this Canvas thing, so let's not commit to buying the URL.
Yeah.
Let's lease it. But anyway, so they rebrand to Canvas Tech. They lease the canvas.com URL, and Instructure immediately sues them. Immediately. And what I really thought was interesting, I read a little bit about the, like the judge's comments and, all that stuff. And he used a very interesting phrase, which was the balance of hardships. So when evaluating, basically like if I rule against one party or the other, whose hardships are going to be the most significant? And the judge's point was that the balance of hardships, falls much more in Instructure's direction because they've spent millions and millions and millions of dollars establishing their brand over time. And not only that, Instructure products, not Canvas products, but Instructure products specifically have introduced some job board-like capabilities over time.
Right.
And so their case was that, basically this other Canvas Tech, formerly Jumpstart, was drafting behind all the goodwill that they've created in the market, and it would create confusion in the marketplace. And the judge says, yeah, I agree with you. The balance of hardships is definitely more significant, and leaning in the direction of Instructure. So y'all rebrand. Now, the person who, kind of broke the story in the article that you sent around makes a case that, well, it's underestimating the balance of hardships around search engine optimization, and pretty thin,
right.
Thin case compared to like how much money Instructure has spent building up that brand. But there's so much interesting stuff to talk about here. So first of all, just, right off the bat, do you think that Canvas, the diversity recruiting job board, should be precluded from using the Canvas name and URL?
Yes.
Yeah, me too.
I do.
Me too.
I think that, when it comes, when we're working on, a naming project, it's really hard to come up with a name that somebody, or usually several somebodies, have not tried to use before. It might be a sunsetted brand. It might be a product within a brand. There's always, if you're going with a common name, not a synthetic name, but a common name like a Canvas or, what have you, there's probably going to be a company somewhere, sometime that was named that. And when you go through the trademark databases, like we do when we are in the process of renaming a company.
A simple thing.
It literally takes us 5 minutes to figure out, is there a conflict that is probably going to get you in trouble?
Yeah.
Or is it something that you would want your lawyers to review?
Yeah.
But see, this one doesn't even... If we were working on this naming project, I spent a lot of time thinking about this. If they had come to us and says, hey, we're going to rename the company Canvas, I would have been like,
nope.
No, you're not. And here's why. You're going to get your ass sued.
Yeah.
And I think that, to me, if they were working with an agency, that agency had the responsibility to kind of do that drill down. There's, agencies aren't lawyers, so there is a limit to what they can accomplish, but they never should have renamed this company Canvas.
Well, there's a clause in our agreement. So, I feel like I should pause here and let people know. They might be surprised to know that we actually do this sort of thing for a living.
A lot, and have done it for a long time.
Well, I was just, just off the top of my head, I was thinking about it. I was like, yeah, we, renamed Virgin Health Miles to Virgin Pulse. And I was just kind of thinking about, like, the well-being space. We renamed Elite Wellness to Vivere. And then
I have a great story about that one too.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was
about buying their domain.
That was in 2008.
Yeah,
that was in 2008. And I think Joe Galvan actually created the logo for them, didn't he?
Yeah.
The original logo.
Yeah.
And Mitch and Joe working together, I think, did that logo a long time ago. And then they were acquired by Virgin Pulse.
Right.
And we also renamed a little company called I Love Rewards to Achievers. and working directly with Razor Suleiman during that period. So, and that's, 3 that I could think. We also helped with, at least, with the renaming of the entire Willis Towers Watson software product portfolio.
Yeah.
And that's, 4 examples out of probably 100 of, like major, kind of naming, rebrand, kind of situations that we've done.
Yeah, but I think what's also kind of worth bringing up is we've been a part of renamings and rebrands that never happened.
Oh, yeah.
Where, like, so let's use SumTotal, for example. When after they were acquired by Vista, they brought us in to do a quick turn rebrand. And one of the things we recommended was change the name. And they were all about it until their lawyers took a look at everything and they're like, oh, if we have to go through all of the requirements to, change all of our contracts, change all of our licensing and all of our agreements across global jurisdictions, it's going to be untold millions of dollars. So, yeah, we get it, but we're not going to do it, which totally made sense. And that's it's those type of things that I think are often overlooked by, hey, let's just rename the company. If you're an established company, an established brand, there are a lot of knock-on effects from changing your name that won't necessarily rise to your level of attention immediately, but are crucial to bear in mind.
No, just like in the old days when people used to walk down the hall to talk to their colleagues, walk down the hall and talk to product development and find out how much work it's going to be to, change the brand, across the product and, all that stuff. But I bring all that up because, I want to establish that we have credibility on this topic. Yeah. And even we have a clause in our agreement. I think it's still there, but we have a clause that basically says we're not lawyers, hire lawyers. But, I've also said probably about 1 million times, it's the first thing that I usually say to people to demonstrate how interesting I am and why they should love me, is that I also am a licensed private investigator. And, I equate the checking the trademark database to, running a background check. There's a difference between a background check and a background investigation, right? Like looking at the test database, in 15 minutes is going to give you some leads. But it is an exhaustive listing of everybody who has, if you know how to, run searches in that, 1980s, mainframe system. Yeah. It is an exhaustive list of multiple combinations and uses of images and words that form trademarks and are, officially filed. And it'll tell you the ones that are dead, the ones that are still alive, et cetera, et cetera. But then you have to go even further. And sometimes, you do have to make a judgment call about whether picking a name that someone else already has is going to create confusion in the marketplace, right? Yep. And so, we've done names where, some other company already had the name. We ran into one of these situations just at the end of last year where we recommended a name, and it turned out that a video game company also had that name. We were aware of it. We brought it up, right, from the start, but we said this is not going to... Totally different buyer, not significant, not likely to cause confusion in the marketplace. ... We're not lawyers. Right. Have your lawyers look at. And so, number one, always have a trademark attorney involved when you're contemplating even what you might consider a tier 2 or tier 3, like product brand change or service mark or, something like that. Always have a trademark attorney or team involved. And so going back to this, naming situation, there are multiple points of failure here when something gets to this stage, right? And so, another thing that, all those names that I mentioned had in common and is really kind of like I'm trying to find out why Jumpstart even bothered. Why did they bother? I mean, so let me present a case to you, and then you tear it apart. There's 6 kinds of names, right? In our model, there's 6 kinds of names. There's 3 on the concrete side, and there's 3 on the abstract side. On the concrete side, you have descriptive names like RecruitSoft, which was what Taleo was before they became Taleo. It describes what the product does, RecruitSoft. And there's like alphanumeric names like IHOP, where, typically it's because, well, International House of Pancakes wanted to sell lunch, so they wanted to keep the brand equity associated with something that people were already using to refer to them, but they wanted to eliminate the, primary pancake, kind of brand connotation, right? And then there's like heritage names like Willis Towers Watson, it's like the names of a bunch of people or places or whatever, and it's meant to like create a sense of trust or legacy or whatever. And then over on the abstract side, you have metaphoric names, which are, the name is meant to be a metaphor for the experience that you have. We don't call it, internet browser, it's called like Safari or, Firefox or, whatever. And then you've got like evocative names, which are meant to kind of stand out and be really different than other names in the field. Apple's probably the most famous evocative name of all time. When they came out, people were called like IBM and, stuff like that. And they were like Apple, very evocative. And to this day, anything that comes out from Apple, you expect it to be completely different, despite the fact that their operating system and pretty much everything about them, except for a few key differences, are very similar to PCs. And then you have just like what we call synthetic names, which are just made up because we ran out of Greek gods. We ran out of, we ran out of all the stuff that we could use for names. And not to make a metaverse point, but, when people make fun of buying real estate in the metaverse, this is the problem that it gets created because the real estate, the digital real estate in Web 2.0 is going away. So you can't just come up with a name and then go out and get the URL because everything's taken. And so you have to end up with these like crazy wonky names. So most of the renames, I bet 90% of the renames that we've done have been moving from a descriptive name convention to an abstract name convention, whether it be evocative or metaphoric or synthetic. And it's so that they can escape the expectation created by the descriptor. So what was wrong with Jumpstart?
Right.
No,
I
I'm
don't
asking,
know.
like, what was wrong?
I don't know. There's in my mind, nothing. Was there a compelling reason other than, hey, we want to rebrand the company? I don't see anything limiting about that name. And, one of the things when we get into naming conversations as a part of a branding exercise, the cynical view of an agency is they always want to rename the company because it's lots of work, that they'll make a lot of money from it.
Yeah.
I spend most of my time trying to figure out how we don't rename a company. And it's just like if a name is serviceable, because we've had companies come to us and say, hey, we want to rename the company. I'll look at them and say, there's nothing wrong with this name. You're going to be unlocking a Pandora's box of problems and expense. Don't do it.
Yeah.
If you want to just freshen up your brand, there's a lot of stuff you can do visually and with messaging and positioning to do that. But if the name is serviceable, don't change it.
Yeah. I mean,
and that name's serviceable.
There's got to be a really good reason. And,
yeah.
I don't know, maybe there's something we don't know here. Maybe someone out there from Canvas will see this and, in the comments, say what the compelling reason was. Maybe they had a legal issue around Jumpstart. Who knows?
Yeah, they might have.
But I don't see anything, like on the face of it that is a compelling reason to rebrand. And I think Jumpstart's actually a really good name, I bet, I wonder what the URL was. Maybe the URL didn't line up with a name or something like that, which again is not a compelling reason to rebrand unless you've got a pure SEO driven inbound marketing model, et cetera, et cetera. And even then, I would question it, but, just doing a quick workup on them, back of the napkin stuff, it says on LinkedIn that they have 109 employees. So say that's about, we'll take about 80% of that because that's not typically accurate, and then do a quick productivity. I mean, this is about a $15 million company. So it's not, like huge. It's not tiny. I mean, it's a significant ongoing concern. So I'm just starting with like, what was the strategy behind all of it? Why did they, do it? Because usually if you're moving names, you're moving from one convention to another. Or there's, some issues. So I just, can't understand why. I mean, they've grown 49%. They've grown their headcount 49% in the last year. They've grown 106% in the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. They're doing pretty well. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing limiting about the name. It doesn't put them in a box from a descriptive perspective. It doesn't. I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, there could very well be a reason that is not apparent, that was a burning building that was forcing them to change the name, or it could have just been, hey, we want to change the name because we want to change the name. They might have run into two guys in a bong agency in San Francisco who said, hey, dude, you need to change the name, and we'll get you a new name and a new logo for the low price of $400,000.
Yeah, when you are a 100-person company, it's not good enough to just say, because I want to, I mean, there's a lot at risk there in rebranding. And inevitably, after a rebrand, there is a decline in brand recognition as you try to rebuild, the association with that brand. But here's the big picture for me. You don't create brands, right? I mean, you don't just change your name and that changes your brand. A brand is created when people affix experiences to a name. And the name comes to mean something over time. And so even if they felt like this compelling vision, it's like they just had this big vision and Canvas was part of it somehow, and they just felt like they wanted a name that was more communicative of what they felt in their hearts to be true about what they were trying to do. Not good enough.
Right.
It's just not good enough to, kind of go out and pursue something like this. So anyway, they did it. So, okay, let's get over it. They did it.
Yeah.
And then what? First point of failure. No compelling reason to rebrand. First point of failure.
Right.
In your opinion, what happens next in this story?
Well, the second point of failure was they changed their name to not just a brand within kind of the work tech universe, but a large brand that is owned by a giant private equity company. And I mean, this is not a brand that is sort of like peripheral. It's just like, back to your point, it is like the leading LMS in the higher ed universe in North America. So this is not a small brand. And especially when you consider how there's, especially in higher ed, there's beginning to be a blend of kind of this learning and higher ed component, ed tech component with recruiting. Because basically when parents are sending their kid to college, they're paying $200,000 a year. At the end of the day, they want their kid to get a job. Mm-hmm. They don't want him to be working as a barista down at Starbucks trying to figure shit out. Or working on his novel.
Nothing wrong with that, but parents definitely.
Nothing wrong with that either. The world needs bad novels, and we also need lattes. So there's that. But they either didn't find it because they didn't do the due diligence, or they looked at it and they just said they didn't care.
Okay, well, both of those. Okay, not finding it. I mean, huge point of failure. I can't help but believe that they knew it, but convinced themselves that, hey, those guys do learning and we're in diversity recruiting.
Right.
And so no one in their right mind is going to get confused.
But see, here's the other interesting point is back to the, hey, we're agencies, we're not lawyers. Yeah. Anytime we have had sort of a judgment call where, we come up with a confusing similarity and we look at it and we're like, you know what, you're probably okay, but run it by your lawyer. Anytime we've done that, their counsel will always come back and say, nope, we're not going to do it. It's too close. Basically, lawyers are risk averse and they don't want to take the chance. Yeah. If they had put this in front of a copyright attorney, I guarantee you there's no way this would have gone through.
Oh, no way at all. No way at all. I mean, this is way too close. I mean, you have to it's in work tech. I mean, even if it weren't in work tech, but it was a technology solution that utilized some sort of similar, kind of art or, something like that, meaning, the way stuff gets done by the solution, it still wouldn't have been passed because the patent office doesn't care about work tech as a subcategory of technology. So, I mean, it's the fact that it was also in work tech and there was a confusing overlap between services provided by, both companies was just like slam dunk, So, in both cases, either they didn't find it or they knew about it but thought they were going to squeak by. Both points of failure. I mean, just doesn't make sense. And I just can't believe that a 100-person company doesn't have an agency in this scenario. I know that
not in San Francisco.
No,
Not in San Francisco. No. But I'm also having a hard time. I mean, like when they announced the rebrand, it was part of a $20 million, I think, Series B, and Sequoia is one of their backers. I cannot believe that they have one or two or three Sequoia dudes on their board, and they were like, hey, we're going to rebrand the company, and that never came up.
Yeah. God, I hope Alfred Lynn is involved somehow. God, I hope he is.
But be that as it may,
moving on.
Anyway. You know who does have a lot of money? Large private equity firms.
Yes.
And they use that money to buy lawyers. Some of the things I've read about this online have been people lamenting the fact that, this terrible giant technology company owned by a PE firm is bullying this small entrepreneurial plucky startup, and just like, wah.
Baloney.
And it's because it's just like, at the end of the day, you have to defend your brand.
Yeah.
You can't, if you allow these things to slip away, then you lose the ability to go back and enforce at a later date. Yeah. And so, I think that Instructure and Toma did exactly what they should have in this instance, which is let's protect our brand, because part of what Toma bought when they bought Canvas was the brand equity that came along with it.
Hey, and look, let's not forget about, the potential optics of this situation. So first of all, I completely come down on the Instructure side. I would have done the same thing, no question. But, the stuff that you're reading online and everything, you combine that with the fact that this is a diversity recruiting solution, right? Mm-hmm. And that could have been, really compounded into like a PR nightmare of not only is this a big, BMF private equity owned company, but they're also picking on a plucky startup, but it's also a plucky startup that is, a diversity recruiting platform. And that could have been a real mess, and it might still be. But that doesn't, none of those things that I just said, creates any kind of context for justifying the enormity of just the lack of professionalism.
Yeah. But it's just like, so, you get to that at the end of all of this, what do you do about it if you're Canvas? I think you fall back on there's no such thing as bad publicity department. I think that you use this as an opportunity while you actually have people's eyes on you to find a innovative and gracious way to execute another rebrand and slowly back out of this situation, but do it with some aplomb that actually helps you improve your brand position coming out of this.
I think it's a good legal strategy too. You just say, oops.
Yeah.
You kind of come out and publicly say, oops,
my bad.
Messed up. Yep. Yeah. Sorry. We're going back to Jumpstart. They should go back to Jumpstart. If anyone from
Well, I'm an agency guy. I want to sell them a new name.
Well, said every agency that lasts for 5 years.
Yes. Were those crickets?
Oh, wait, it gets better. I got all kinds of stuff.
You've been holding out on me. You've had all of this technology at your fingertips. What magic is this, Brett Starr?
I wanted to introduce them slowly, but I'm too excited about them. That's my... Yeah, so what were we talking about?
I don't even remember. I'm just too excited about the sound effects.
Well, I've got room for 16 simultaneously, just so you know. So if there's anything special that you want.
Okay. I'll take that under advisement.
I'll put it on the list. Yeah, so I think in short and in closing, I think they probably ought to just go back to their old brand name and basically, you could make this a really funny moment. And a lot of times humor can diffuse, PR problems. It can diffuse legal problems,
Yeah.
And instead of digging in and trying to fight, because they are appealing it. And I think that's just, to me, this is like, kind of the logical chain that shows me they knew and they just dug in their heels, because if they're appealing it, then they've made this decision multiple times that they're sticking with it no matter what, come hell or high water, as we say in Texas. And I just, they're not going to win. And we've only had, probably 100 conversations about naming and legal implications. I do think we should give a shout out to the person who wrote this article, the one that you sent around, which is a fellow named Ax Sharma, on bleepingcomputer.com, and we'll drop the article into the description to make sure that folks can read it. It's a very well-written and well-researched article. I disagree with a couple of points, but that's what good, writing does. It makes a case that, people choose to agree or disagree with, and I think Ax did a great job in this.
Yeah, I thought it was a very thoughtful exploration.
Well, I also, just want to wrap up by, kind of hitting the high points here. If you are considering a rebrand, you really need to start with strategy. And so, ask yourself what the compelling reason for the rebrand is, because there's a lot of friction created by rebrands and a lot of unintended consequences and a lot of unexpected costs and stuff like that. So there should be a really compelling reason driving a rebrand, number one. Number two is do your research. You start with strategy, you move to research. Typically you ask yourself, people who do this for a living ask, what is this name trying to achieve? What are the goals of this? And that's defined by the strategy, right? And your research will, basically take when we rename a company, we start with, 100, 200, options, and eventually get it down to maybe 5 or something like that. And then, eventually the client will choose one. But by the time we get to 5, they have all been extensively researched, and they all have pros and they all have cons. Sometimes you can get the domain, sometimes you can't. Meaning, and specifically, sometimes you can get the .com, sometimes you have to get an alternative, etc. It's really hard to find, a name with no digital exhaust whatsoever. So there's just always trade-offs, right? So the second thing is doing the research, and then you create, you make the decision, the name, the brand, based on the strategy and the research that you've done. That's when you actually make the decision and you develop all of it, and then you validate it. So even after you've done all that work, before you go out to market, you put it in front of employees, you put it in front of clients or customers, you put it in front of industry insiders. And by going through a validation stage, someone might raise their hand and say, oh, have you heard of this other canvas over here? And then you activate it. And finally, you measure it to see if it actually is driving what your strategy is. So there's like 6 steps that you go through and multiple sub-steps. And to end up in the situation that, Jumpstart is in right now, basically means that basically all the steps were skipped, and somebody just said, we want this to be the name, and we think there might be somebody else out there with it, but we're just going to move forward anyway. Go straight to execution and let it fly. And that is not how you do a rebrand. And I'm very sorry that this happened. I know I sound like a jerk right now. I'm really sorry that this happened to Jumpstart. But come on. Come on.
Well, it's just like it's a branding own goal, It's just like it's something that could have easily been avoided.
What do you mean by that, a branding own goal?
Well, okay, are you familiar with this sport called non-American football?
You mean the football?
What we Americans would call soccer.
Oh, like the Ted Lasso version?
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
So an own goal is when
you kick it in your own net.
Kick it in your own net.
Gotcha.
So
I have to admit, man, I don't like soccer.
Oh, you're breaking my heart, man.
No, it's not.
It's a beautiful game.
It is a beautiful game. And, when the Olympics come around, I'll watch and root for Team USA, all that stuff. But my kids play a bunch of different sports. And Bonnie's really excelling at basketball. And she's very tall. I think she, what is she? I think she's 5'4" at 10 years old.
Wow.
And so that's pretty tall.
Yeah.
And so she plays center, and she just dominates. She's awesome. But she also plays soccer, and man, soccer there's so much drama in soccer compared to like basketball that, and I was a college goalkeeper.
Were you though?
Was I?
You were, but
Was I?
I seem to recall when you played games, you would smoke cigarettes in goal.
Well, that's why I got
Does that
kicked
really
off.
make you a college athlete?
Hey, we shut out UT. I was unscored on in my college career.
Well, and that was that was an NCAA Division I match.
School?
Yeah,
No, we were
it was a club.
we were one of those warm up games.
Okay,
How
Okay.
like the big schools like UT put like teams like Southwestern University and Georgetown, Texas, on their schedule early in the season. We won, and Dan McCarron was midfielder.
Really?
In that match, and he has video to prove everything that I'm saying.
okay.
I was a great goalkeeper, but like most.
Well, what was the
goalkeepers, I
story
didn't
though
do
about
shit.
when you were smoking a cigarette in goal, and how did that end up?
Well, I got kicked off the team. We were playing Trinity, and in San Antonio, and they were kind of our rivals or whatever. And I was trying to be funny because we were dominating them so significantly that they never got on my side. So I was trying to demonstrate that I was bored by lighting up a Camel Wide cigarette, a Camel Wide. If you remember that.
Yes, I do.
I lit up a Camel Wide, and I leaned back against the pole, and I took 2 puffs, and my coach called me out, and I was gone, man. That was the end of my college career.
Ah, you had a real coach then.
Have done a lot to embarrass me, but this is beyond the pale. Like, I tend to agree with you, sir. Please take me off this team. Oh, wait, look, I could do this. All right. Okay. All right.
Soccer is a beautiful game, though.
Soccer is, and I'm sorry for all the things I said bad about soccer. I can't remember why we were talking about. Oh, own goal. Own goal.
Own goal.
They screwed themselves, I think is basically what that.
But I back to your original point. I find no joy in anybody who is getting sued over naming, branding, any of those things, because it's no fun.
Here's the headline: hire a professional.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, hire a professional. And when I say a professional, I don't mean 2 guys in a bong, which I love the 2 guys in a bong model. In fact, what a lot of people probably don't know about the Star Conspiracy is that it's kind of based on recapturing, the magic of 2 guys in a bong.
Can you explain to maybe the people who don't know what 2 guys in a bong is, because we've used it quite a bit in this conversation?
So here's the 2 guys in a bong model. It's peak creativity. And it's basically a moment in, the development of an agency, or, and credit where credit is due. We were taught this phrase by Jack Skills, and Jack Skills teaches agencies how to be agile. His company's called Agency Agile.
Great guy.
He's a genius.
Yeah,
he's
he
a
is.
genius. And he has had such a tremendous positive impact, not just on us, but on hundreds of agencies around the world. Really smart guy.
Yeah.
But basically, when you start an agency, it's generally 2 guys in a bong, and I'll use that in a gender-neutral way if that's possible. It's 2 folks in a bong, and there's no overhead, administrative, management burden, systems burden. It's just 2 people at maximum creativity, cranking out work for clients. And then as you move, go ahead.
Well, and I was going to say, when Jack first said that, having kind of been around agencies for a while, I immediately thought of like 5 agencies that I knew from just being around kind of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, or being in that environment, where what it is it's you have 2 really bright creatives who are working in an agency 100 hours a week, getting ground into nothing, who've done some really great work, who are like, fuck this shit. I'm tired of it. Let's go out on our own. They take one good client with them. They have a source of making some money.
Is that Joe Biden? Is Joe Biden calling you?
No, that was not Joe Biden.
Okay.
And what ends up happening is they realize they actually need more clients, so they need to actually go out and sell stuff. But it basically is just like exactly like that. It's 2 guys. They have IKEA desks looking at each other. There will be a bong somewhere in the room, because that's how they get creative.
That's right.
There you go.
No sweat. But
Anyway.
then you grow a little bit, and suddenly, you know, there's this administrative layer that's implemented, and you feel like the creativity goes down.
Or you need to actually go out and sell some stuff. You realize I hate selling is
Yes.
often what that is.
Yeah, that's right. And but there's a lot of good. So I think we're kind of like we're on different nuances here.
Yeah.
I see it as an inherently positive thing, but it is limiting, right? Like to me, it you know, it is a moment of peak creativity and efficiency in creativity. It's like there's no layers, you know, kind of interfering with how creative someone can be. And then when you get into a larger organization, it can be more complex. And then when you get to our size, you know, you start working on how you recreate the magic of two guys in a bong at scale, right? And so, you know, we've been working on that. That's probably our life's work, you know. Honestly, I think we'll probably be better known for, you know, our innovations to professional services work systems than the work that we do in market. I really believe that. Oh, shit, what were we trying to say?
We were talking about the origin story of two guys in a bong.
Oh, yeah. So that's two guys in a bong. So my point is, when I say work with professionals, two guys in a bong are not professionals, because there are, when it comes to something as significant as, you know, naming, branding, etc., there are things that two guys in a bong haven't figured out yet because they haven't been sued enough yet.
Right.
And so if you're going to, you know, rebrand and you are a going concern of significance, make sure you work with professionals. Make sure those professionals have been in business, you know, for at least 5 to 10 years. Minimum, right? And ask them to walk you through their process. This is the best interview question that we have, by the way. In our hiring experience, we ask, take something that most people would think is incredibly complex and explain it to us. And, you know, we get all these amazing, like, video interview answers and everything. And then we follow it up with, tell us about the project that you're most proud of and walk us through step by step how you did it. And I would ask both of those questions to someone that I was interviewing for, you know, a rebrand or a rename or something like that. Because if they're not talking about things that fall under strategy, research, creation, validation, activation, measurement, if they don't have a comprehensive you know, picture, if they're not talking about where the handshake exists between the agency and the company and the lawyers and how they're not lawyers, then they've never done it before, and you don't want to be their guinea pig because you can end up like Jumpstart.
Well, and like with the two guys in a bong model, you can get fantastic creative. But a lot of times it is great creative for the sake of great creative, and it's not great creative for the sake of telling your story and achieving marketing efficiency and scalability for your brand. So it's sort of the difference, I look at it, between, say, the Addy Awards and the IABC Awards. So Addies, you know, it's just like the advertising awards. Whenever you enter one of those, it's all about pretty creative. They care nothing about the story behind it. You know, IABC, International Association of Business Communicators, you submit for an award there, you need an entire case study, and you need to walk through the process, and you need to be able to demonstrate the impact. So it's just like having won awards from both of those entities, which I have. It's just like, you know, hey, great, I've got some Addy Awards, that's cool, but it's just sort of like, wow, their process is whisper thin opposed to something else. And it's just like, that's where one of the key failure points is. You can get great creative, but it may not necessarily be in service of your business.
Yeah. Did you say you'd won awards from both?
I did that. Was that a nice little humble brag there, or did I just kind of like slide that in there?
I got one of those. No, seriously though, congratulations. But
it's been a while.
This is one of the reasons why we don't submit for awards.
Yeah.
We never talk about this, but the Star Conspiracy does not submit for awards. Why? It adds no value to the client. But it is a tremendous amount of work. Now, I could be compelled by the argument that it adds to the employee experience. And if folks feel like that's an important part of their experience, is being recognized for their work outside of, you know, the client's acceptance of it or whatever, and, you know, they wanted to apply for awards, I would totally be open to that. But I just don't, I don't think, you know, I think people, when they come to the Star Conspiracy, over time, they come to realize that we're serious about never having another job. You know, it's like, let's work together forever, you know, and then they like that stuff becomes less important because it's a career management thing. In my opinion.
And I think that, you know, so we do apply for awards, but we kind of got out of the advertising awards game a long time ago because it was just reindeer games. We were like, you know, this is not doing anything to help our clients. So let's just cut this shit out. But the awards that we do focus on are, you know, best place to work or, you know, best companies, things like that, which are different because, yeah, they're clouded with data. You know, you have an employee survey, you know, and I know that there are the cynics out there who believe that those things, you know, are gamed, can be gamed. And I admit they can be, but the award that I'm most proud of that we won was when we won a Best Places to Work award through the Dallas Business Journal in 2020. So worst year for business since, you know, 1929 maybe. And we got such great comments out of that employee survey, and we learned so much about the magic of the agency that I'm really proud of that award.
So am I. What a strange event.
Yeah.
It was at the Texas Motor Speedway, because this was like early in the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
It was at Texas Motor Speedway, and they turned it into a drive-in theater, so no one left their cars, and they showed Talladega Nights.
That would be the best award ceremony I've ever been to.
Yeah, and Dan and I just sat in the car. I took my car and I like lowered the tailgate. We sat on the back and drank beer and watched Talladega Nights. And then at some point they put up a slide presentation that, you know, listed the companies that won best places to work. And I think it was also the first year that we were not in the small company category, that we were in the mid-sized company category. And in other news, which we don't have time to talk about, but congratulations to Quantum Workplace, who they run that one, but they run a lot of the best places to work competitions, and they just got a significant amount of funding from a private equity group. So they will continue the good fight. Way to go, Greg. Good job.
Great job, Greg.
Oh, wait. I'm probably never going to use those things again.
Oh, no, I love them. Keep it up.
I don't know. They seem kind of cheesy to me.
They are cheesy, but that's why we need to keep using them. We got to keep the low production value that we have fought so hard to maintain.
Well, it turns out that this low production value is incredibly expensive. I'm speaking at Insperity's sales conference in a couple of weeks. No, it's next week. I think it's next week. And you know, they're trying to decide whether they're going to do it live or in person, or whether they're going to do it virtual or whatever. And I was talking to Michael Leip. It's just an excellent. I love Insperity. I love Michael Leip. We've been a customer of Insperity's for a long time. Yeah. And you know, I'm speaking because we doubled in size in last year, and they want the voice of the customer at the sales conference. That's why I'm there. And so I'll be speaking. And he said, well, I guess if it goes virtual, you'll, you know, it looks like you've got a pretty good setup. And I said, yeah, like, you know, $100,000 later. Yeah, I think I could do virtual.
Yeah, this is the podcast equivalent of like a dad band, you know, where it's just like, you know, I've got a $5,000 Les Paul and, you know, a Marshall stack behind me. And, well, actually, you do have a Marshall stack behind you. And, you know, I'm barely able to pick out smoke on the water, you know.
I can't use any of this shit. Thank God for Dana. You know, Dana, who's not, you can't see her because she turns off her video. She's the producer. She's actually the one that knows how to take all this stuff and make stuff happen. So thank God for Dana. Thank you, Dana.
Thank you, Dana.
Appreciate it. All right, man. Well, any final words? You know, we got some good advice about how to get you shot out of a cannon after you die.
Yeah, the team really gravitated toward that.
They really did. So when I say any final words, you know, any final words before we shoot you out of a cannon.
No, I was just impressed that the team actually went about finding a cannon, which, you know, I admired the initiative that they exhibited, but I'm also a little disturbed that they felt that it needed to be handled fairly urgently.
No, I just think it's really exciting. It's just a show of love. It's like you want it so bad, and everyone wants to make it happen for you so much. And everyone wants to be part of an amazing story. And that would be a pretty amazing story. Oh, yeah, Steve Smith, we shot him out of a cannon when he died.
Yeah, that'd be great. Too bad I won't be around to enjoy that one.
Well, that's why we should do a trial run.
What, to stick me in an actual cannon? No. You insane?
All
Yes,
right.
you are.
All right. Well, I'll talk to you next week.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.